let me explain it this way. Oh, fancy. Okay, hold on. I got to say, got it. Okay. So a great example is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is hot. Cryptocurrency is hot. Well, so what, right? Why are businesses excited? Our business is considering paying people in Bitcoin. That's our report. That's our research. That's what companies are going to want to look to us for. That's not on the table. I'm just using that as a hypothetical example. Research is our bread and butter. We do have events. We do have a certification product. So, for example, you can sort of stamp, I'm certified by Forrester in customer experience. We do have consulting as well. So people, consulting and research out in the marketplace, people sort of talk about it in the same way. They are two different things. At Forrester, the way our consulting works versus a big four, so an EY or PwC, you have multiple projects happening at the same time. So, those big fours, you go and you camp out on site with the client and you're there for the whole duration. Well, the difference at Forrester is you're managing multiple projects at one time. And that's for consulting. So I'm going to pause. I feel like, I don't know, Scott, Lewis, Amy, what do you guys think? Good. Okay.
I think you're right on the money, and you're speaking to some of what it makes Forrester special, I think, in the market, which is the ability to take strategic thinking, which is traditional Forrester, right, where we came from, and then a recent acquisition of Serious Decisions, which we've also integrated, has been a really enormous way to then move from strategy down into execution. So we're now able to not just put out thought leadership based on the data that we get from all these surveys that we do, right? And the way that we read the data. But we're also now able to say, okay, you are in a particular position, you have these decisions in front of you. And based on our data, we now have a team that can help support you all the way through execution as deep as you want to go. So we've really rounded out our capabilities on this end to be from our traditional strategic level at Forrester all the way down into a very tactical executional perspective, which is, I don't know of many other agencies who can operate at both levels very well. But this one seems to be so far.
It does. And the other thing that I'll say, people sort of like, okay, so how does that apply to me, a research company? We cover so many different areas and we serve so many different people in the marketplace that are looking to make decisions within their organization. So you talk about supply chain and product management, HR, recruit, like we cover research from A to Z. And so, a great example is you wouldn't consider a Forrester analyst necessarily being quoted in the New York Times in the same paragraph as George Floyd, right? But we also do D&I research. And as the market shifts and changes, we shift and change. And so there are opportunities to talk about D&I and how that influences the world today, the same way that we can influence media, which is, really interesting. So, yeah. What else can we tell you? Like, I don't want to go, it's hard. I've been here for a long time, so I can sort of get into the weeds a little bit. We have a lot of really great opportunities for people to join Forrester. And I think 9 out of 10 times when I talk to somebody, it's often I'm targeting people like Scott. So I have to go out and find them in the marketplace. They're sort of, I didn't think of Forrester, or I didn't think that I could do this type of role. But people really are happy here because they get to touch so many different industries.
Well, I'd be curious, and Evan and Emmanuel, please don't let me do all the talking here. But, after we heard Emmanuel's intro, everybody's looking for that. Tell me why. Like, what are you seeing? I'm curious about, what exactly are they looking for, and what sort of things should Emmanuel be thinking about? And Evan, forgive me because I'm not sure I caught what area you're looking in as well. But since we've got a relatively captive audience here with these guys, let's make it personal and sort of go down to we can talk at that level if you're comfortable with it. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I think Scott, I love your perspective on the supply chain. I mean, but I think we're so close to what's happening in the marketplace, right? Like we're thinking about Scott's team. I don't know how far back you started thinking about Black Friday and Cyber Monday and those types, Scott's team, they're able to predict numbers. They're able to predict, shortage because of supply chain, things like that. So I'll let Scott talk a little bit more about that. But I'll tell you this, there's not a one size fits all for the research roles, right? There are core,
that's for sure.
Right? Like there are core skills that are going to make people successful, but we just hired a 10-year veteran into a senior analyst for healthcare, right? So it's not a one size fits all at all.
Yeah, and she is awesome, by the way. I really respect her even from the get-go. She's amazing. So what I would add to this is that and I think, Jessica, you really pointed something out that I think is kind of special, which is that each of us analysts we're very tuned in to the specifics of whatever it is that we cover, right? And whatever it is that we cover is basically a learning exercise. We're going out, we're doing surveys, we're doing interviews, and then we basically assimilate all of that information, both qualitative and quantitative, into a perspective, right? And that perspective, one of the things that I found really unique here at Forrester is that perspective isn't one person's perspective. That's not how we work, right? The perspective here is it's a very collaborative, teamwork-oriented, but single-person driven, project-based deliverable. Okay, so I know that was a long string of words, but essentially you own it, but you get to collaborate with some incredibly talented people out there, right? So I can tell you, just a year and a half in, I came in. Two of my heroes in my industry are on the team I happen to land on, right? So literally two of my heroes are on this team. So it's almost like if you were to join, I don't know, whatever your favorite basketball team is, we'll say, I don't know, Golden State Warriors perhaps, and so-and-so's there already, and you join the team and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here, right? Now, what's beautiful about it is that they're literally going to collaborate with you all along the way. It's not, you're driving your projects, you're driving your own deliverables, you're driving your own, whatever it is that perspective and vision is that you have, but you've got this enormous team behind you that is very similar to the services that we're used to, right? So you need air, okay, I was 0311, right? Like Marine Corps infantryman. So if I need air support, I call in air support. If I need this, I call in this and cross my fingers, someone shows up, right? But it's the same kind of environment here at Forrester. And I have literally found that that every analyst and not just analysts, but everyone is super excited to try to help. That's one of the conditions that's almost built in. And it's a very, I relate to it very strongly to my services background, right? Which is, I was serving. That is exactly what I was doing. And when you look around you and the rest of the people are doing exactly the same thing, they're serving your customer, they're serving each other as compatriots. It's a really special environment. Like I said, I've not seen this other than in the service, right? I've not seen a group as tight as this in the service. And one other thing, I have to say, be okay with not being the smartest guy in the room, right? If you're the guy who needs to be the smartest guy in the room, this is going to be a tough place for you because you are surrounded by incredibly intelligent folks, right? Now, if you're the other type, which is, you crave not being the smartest guy in the room and being able to tap into and collaborate with other folks who might know more than you do, this is a beautiful place to be. So Jessica, I'll leave it at that. I will tell you, it's one of the most impressive things in my year and a half here at Forrester is the quality of folks is really, really high. And I don't just mean like, oh, they're intelligent. Oh, they came from Harvard, Stanford, wherever. I mean, not only are they hyper intelligent, but they operate with integrity and service and a lot of those core values that we already understand. And I'm not a recruiter, by the way. Yeah. Never have been, don't want to be. I'm being honest. Okay, guys. A year and a half in, all right?
Yeah. And as an aside, if you ask my wife, she would tell you I've built my life on not being the smartest guy in any room. So but anyway, so Evan, how about any questions? I know, Emmanuel, you may have to pop smoke out of there, but let's open it up. What have you got that maybe Jessica hasn't been able to answer in some of your prior meets or conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Scott, for giving us that little summary. because I talked to Jessica before, I kind of want to focus more of my questions on you, Scott, because you're still relatively new with the company and you are a veteran. So it is great to hear like how Forrester has a lot of similarities with the military lifestyle. So a little bit about myself. I served 5 years in the Navy. I was a nuclear submarine officer. I just recently transitioned into the reserves, and recently transitioned to the reserves and getting my MBA from Boston University. It sounds like a lot of the skills were, I guess, like soft skills that were transferred over from the Marine Corps for you into Forrester. I was wondering though, just how was like the learning curve, like trying to learn those hard skills at Forrester for you? Because I know it's got to be pretty different from the Marine Corps.
Very, very different, but the support is there. So not only do you, so it's strange because I joined just right when COVID hit, right? So I haven't been in an office with a lot of other folks. So that collaborative nature has been a touch removed from my initial experience. But that being said, even with that in play and people not being in office and things like that, to start with, the technology, boom, no problem. Everything pretty much works. If you need to collaborate, you can collaborate. There is literally not technology getting in your way, right? So that's something that's very different from a lot of other business situations where you'll be fighting your tech to try to make the job happen. That's not what we've got going on here, which is fantastic. I don't even think about my tech, right? It just works. And if it doesn't, boom, someone's on it right away. The feedback that you get from the other folks within the chain is really special. So you're going to, it's not just, you talked about hard skills. Soft skills are pretty easy to assimilate to a certain degree. Hard skills are basically all documented. So if you need, okay, so I'm not going to dive into the complexities of being an analyst, but let's just say there are 20 different document types and each of them have different rules, right? And when you go to start to write your actual document, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. There's too many decisions here. I'm not quite sure. There is complete documentation out there about, Forrester style, Forrester guidelines related to the work you're doing. So the goal is not ambiguous, which is also special and unique to the service, right? Well, when you felt those feelings, those are not comfortable feelings, right? When the goal is ambiguous. Okay, and that's what Forrester really tries to do too, is make sure that goal is not ambiguous and give you the tools to get there as easily as possible and the people to reach out to if you don't find it in the documents, essentially. But it's all laid out. Jessica, you work with this so much more than me. Onboarding is not a problem. I will tell you, like, I'm come from a creative background that then assimilated data. So I'm kind of a weird left brain, right brain Mac guy for 20 years. And then, oh my gosh, let's jump into PC. Any of those hurdles has really not been a problem here at Forrester. You've got support either from basic, desktop support, like, oh my gosh, how do you do this thing? All the way up to strategic support, like, hey, I need help with my content plan, right? Or even getting, having an embedded advocate like I have two of them, right? I have two on my team that are basically my advisors. They're not in my chain of command. They're literally just there to help me. They commit 30 minutes a week at the very least to me specifically. And those are those things that really, really matter when you're talking with someone who has done this for a very long time. You know what I mean? So I hope I answered your questions. Soft skills, yes, you're going to need them. Yes, you probably already developed them, especially as an officer in the service. Like most of those you've probably already got. The hard skills in my mind are really not tough challenges. They're either documented, you've got support, and you can reach out for more if you need it.
Great, thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah.
So I wonder, let me ask Amy and Marcel, also both veterans, sort of that same question, but a little bit differently in terms of like, where did you guys experience any potential challenges of switching into a non sort of military work environment? And I will say, Fidelity, in my experience, was a lot like the way you described Forrester in terms of same high standard more of, hey, do the right thing. It's like you do it whether they're watching you or not. But there were still things that I had to learn to sort of become truly integrated into the sort of civilian workforce. And I'd love to hear if you guys have any sort of examples that you could share of sort of things to watch out for, or maybe things that you experienced that didn't go as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, I could say for me, understanding who to go to, similar, similar to the military, you do have a chain of command, but there's a lot of independent thinking that's associated with being an HR business partner, where strategic leaders are looking to you to make these decisions. And so I remember in the service having to sort of get a check and balance with several different people before making a decision. Whereas in the civilian sector, when I first started in HR, I was really like, well, what do you think, Amy? Just take this and be independent and run with it, and we'll trust your judgment. So that's one thing that I can offer. I'll pass it to Marcel.
That was almost exactly how I was going to say. I was going to say, for me, it was the structure in the military is so rigid that I even remember asking my hiring manager, like, oh, like, who should I go to with problems, or like, who's your boss? And he's like, it's not as important. Like, I guess it's not quite as much like you have to know that. Or obviously you want to, like, and you want to know who your boss's boss and boss's boss is, but it's not like someone's going to come up to you and say, who's the leader of this section, like they would in the military. But for me, another kind of along those lines, again, is the pace of things. I was always trying to just, whenever I was given a task, like just get it done. And then I would get it kind of off track with someone else, like emailing. And I'd kind of just be like, oh, I have to get this other thing done. And it was kind of, it seemed like a lot of different inputs of like different kind of things. So I think that really knowing that you take those things and then you kind of like make the project management side of it, which maybe that's lower enlisted Army side of it. But it was always so like, you have this task and it has to be done by this day. And like here, it's kind of like, you kind of just know, like, all right, it's got to be done by like the next month or two. And there's more of it coming in and it's not so direct, which kind of goes hand in hand with what Amy said. But overall, it was, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, along with that time management that you just mentioned, I was thinking about curiosity, especially at Forrester. I know that curiosity is really welcomed in the military. It's sort of like it's not normal to challenge something that someone gives you. It's encouraged here to really further understand and show that you're curious and show that you want to learn, whether you're interviewing with someone or whether you're just talking with a different person across the ecosystem to learn more about what they do. I think that's a really important lesson as well.
Yeah, and Marcel, I want to add on to both what you and Amy said about the rigidity of the service compared to what you have here at Forrester is very, very different. And I just had a conversation 2 weeks ago with my boss about it, right? Saying, okay, I'm starting to see something here, which is I will defer to leadership every time because it's just built in, right? But that's not what Forrester is asking for, right? They're asking for individual ownership as well as being under leadership, right? And that leadership can come from not just your chain of command, right? Not just your direct chain of command, but from all these other projects that you intermingle with. And like they both said, it's not task-based work, it's project-based work for the most part, right? And so there's a new level of prioritizing the tasks to make the project work, which is the management you're already doing, right? You're already doing this stuff. But in the service, you might be just a little bit more removed from that, right? And someone is giving you the playbook. Okay, here, go execute the playbook. At Forrester, no one's giving you a playbook. They're giving you guidelines. And you're creating your own content, let's say, and then you go build it together collaboratively with your chain of command and also your collaborative peers, which is it's a bit different.
And I think as you're looking for and exploring roles that you're interested in, it's important to understand how you work best. So if you do work best in an environment where someone can give you a task and you can just go and run with it and be autonomous, if that's how you thrive, that's fantastic. And also, on the other side of the spectrum, if you thrive in a collaborative environment, you have that as well. So just understanding where your strengths and passions lie can help guide you in your next step.
Amy, that was perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's not one way. Genuinely not. There's room for both. And Forrester is actually being very proactive about making sure that we're being inclusive of all types, right? And we're not talking skin color. We're talking how people are, how we work best, the environment that allows us to produce our best among our peers, right? So yeah, Forrester's super oriented around that too. Good call out, Amy.
So let me see, any sort of additional questions that either Evan, Emmanuel, you'd like to pose to the Forrester folks, or any additional commentary either about, traits or maybe even current positions that you guys are looking to fill? That would be super helpful. Again, we've got, 23 minutes we can use, but I just want to make sure, we're sort of keeping an eye on, what do you guys want to accomplish, not just watch the clock run. So.
Yeah, I logged on specifically for the consulting opportunities, and you touched up on a bit how there's a lot of project variety and how there's multiple projects happening at one time. I was wondering if you could talk more about what the consultants are doing on those projects, and also the different types of consulting roles that are available.
Yeah, let me bear with me for a moment, because I just had a we just had a deep dive with our SVP of consulting, and I had all of my notes, so I'm going to pull them up as we chat. So one of the things that I touched upon is that it's different than a big four. So that big four, I'm sure you hear that term all the time, right? Like what was it? EY, PwC, Accenture, and Deloitte, right? So people tend to, out of MBAs, want to go right to those types of organizations, which isn't wrong. But like I said, people do, if you come from a big four, because let me just pull down my consulting notes so I have it in front of me. Okay, there we go. So it's the way that our consulting services delivery model works. So we look at it as customer oriented, flexible delivery model. We're designed to sell programmatically, right? Like not one-off engagements, and we're built to scale up. So I go back to that big four, right? So you're assigned to a single client. All of your work is for that client for that entire duration. The shift that people sometimes struggle with coming to Forrester is balancing multiple projects and multiple clients at one time. But it gives you more, I think it gives you more exposure, more visibility, because you're not pigeonholed into one spot. We have about 1,800 employees. So you do get the sort of opportunity to spread, right? So like recruiting, for example, you can recruit for research, consulting, analytics, you're not pigeonholed because we're not so large that you're stuck. So, we have 4 different types of consulting that we offer: advisory, strategy, and then market impact and TEI. So market impact and total economic impact are two different pieces of consulting as well. So the way that consulting is designed is to align with our research portfolio. So, streamlined scoping and selling process, more efficient delivery models across all the service lines. So hopefully that gives you, I had to pull up my notes to make sure I got all of the words right. But yeah, it's not a typical consulting. We call it, and the way that I would describe it is lifestyle friendly consulting. You're going to be busy at Forrester, no question, just like any other organization. But that said, you're not traveling 8 days a week. You have the opportunity to have a life, right? And so, and I'm not saying the big fours don't have lives. I just mean that's for, if you're looking for something a little bit more flexible where you have the opportunity to touch a lot of things, this is the type of consulting opportunity that would allow you to do that. And I think that, Scott, I keep calling on Scott, I'm sorry about that, but consulting and research do work together. But again, sometimes when I talk to candidates, they blend the two together and they are two different groups. Yeah.
Yeah, they are very different groups, right? Right. One is putting the rubber on the ground, and the other is figuring out which car to drive, right? Essentially. And businesses need both from in all range of services, right? Financial services, like banking, retail, supply chain, all of it, they all need it. So that's what they look to us for, right? Is to give them a little bit of a crystal ball in terms of what's around the corner, to try to give them a competitive advantage against their competitors, right? Who are out there, and basically try to be great leaders for their people. So those are kind of the three ways that I see, our intellectual property really mattering out there, is giving them foresight and tool sets and ways to help manage that change within their org.
Within the strategy consultant position, is it more industry focused, more general, or more position oriented, as in like tasks? As far as how they're
I was going to let Scott take that one.
Oh, I was going to wait for you. Hey.
So
go ahead.
It's
I want to hear your description.
So I look at it more as roles and areas, right? So like I hire, customer experience, senior analysts, will hire senior consultants to focus on customer experience as well. What I don't have an intimate knowledge of is then what does the manager do from there? If you have a team of, 6, how do you align them by strengths, or do you align them by industries? That I'm actually unsure of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that we definitely cover some specific industries. Like I happen to be involved in one team that's retail specific industry. And so we cover privacy and data and personalization and omni-channel, all these other things related to that industry. But then there are also analysts who just cover personalization, or just cover customer experience, or just across all industries. So we strangely kind of have both right now. Though I would say we tailor more towards the role, not the industry, right? So if you're a CX person, you're going to be executing CX research across multiple industries, if possible, hopefully. That's the best way.
Okay, great. So, okay, they'll put you more into a position that perhaps aligns with either your interests or your background and experience, or both. And then what would make a applicant more competitive for a position like that?
Great question. So deep experience in that industry or role or vertical is super important, but I have to say probably the most important is curiosity, which I think, Jessica, you brought up, right? Which the real critical factor of success at Forrester is the willingness to learn, that drive to learn beyond your peers, essentially, right? Because you're basically, our job, and I'm speaking mostly as an analyst here, but Forrester as a whole is basically to assimilate what's happening out there because we're hyper focused on specific roles and or industries, so that we can know more than our customers and give them insights where they don't have them and don't have the time to spend. Could they go do it if they spent the time to do it? Absolutely they could, right? These are hyper intelligent folks we're dealing with, but they don't have the time to do what we do. So it's literally our job to study a market, do specific research to try to figure out the eccentricities, and then deliver those insights in a way that makes it strategic for our customers. So hopefully that answered your question. I'm not sure.
No, absolutely. And then once you're in the role, what does the career progression look like in terms of positions?
Yeah, no, I'll jump in. Thank you, Scott. So the nice thing is we hire, it's associate consultant. With somebody with the MBA, you would want to go right to a typically they go right to consultant because we do look for a little work experience, but they're flexible with folks coming out of an MBA program because of the skills and experiences that you're gaining there. So you have associate consultant, consultant, senior, principal, and then we do have some VP principal consultants. And so that's the highest individual contributor. That said, there's a lot of moving around within Forrester. That's really cool, right? So I've seen people go from research to consulting. I've seen people go from, analytics to research. So you might be someone in consulting, because in the consulting, you're not, the TEI and Market Impact do put out some white papers and TEI does some work with the clients. But strategy consulting, which is what you were focused on, you're not putting out the same thought leadership that Scott's putting out. So maybe you want to make this shift and then, build your brand as an analyst and then start actually doing the research. So there's a lot of opportunity within Forrester. That's the other piece that I think is cool about us, is that, when you are in a really large, and there's nothing against it, I've worked at a large organization, sometimes there's set sort of tiers, like, okay, you have to be in this role for 2 years and then you can go here. And this is really the trajectory that you're going to stay in. Forrester, we talk about growing new skin and shedding your skin all the time and trying different stuff. I mean, the amount of people in HR that we work with, that used to be, like I think about, the person who directs comp used to be a project person, right? And then she went to learning and development, and then we needed a comp person, and it was sort of like, let's do it. Let's see how it goes. So people will raise their hands to do something totally different. And that's okay. We want you to shed your skin and try something new and different. So what I say to people is that you own a lot of your own growth, but it's also where you want to go.
Okay,
Right.
sounds great.
And I would just throw on
flexibility.
top of that. Sorry,
Yeah.
one piece. I would throw on top of that is that there is a hierarchy here, which is actually, so at my age, it's a different decision where you go to be with a company for a while, right? And there's one of the reasons why I decided Forrester could be a great place for me to be over the next 10 years or so, is that there is a place to go from here, not just where I was already. So yeah, there is a long hierarchy up there if you want to take it there, but there's also there's a broad array of choices along the way. So anyway, hope that helps.
Even, for example, you might have someone that covers, like contact centers, and then, moves over to future of work because there's a little bit of overlap and they really want to go over to write about employee experience. So that's the growth and opportunity that you would find.
Yeah. And I was just going to say one last comment, sort of building on what Scott was talking about, is maybe that's something that is a mental adjustment for some veterans, where you're used to saying, I got to be second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major. That's the only way it works. Whereas in the civilian world, there is a lot of lateral stuff that can be equally beneficial from a career development and long-term perspective that doesn't necessarily entail making a jump up. Now, obviously, if you're solely focused on, I want the grade and the pay, clearly that's going to be the way to get there. But what I would say is, as you look at your career, start to think about it in more of a 360 way, where it's like, going over here might be a lateral short term, but I gain this valuable skill that will then help me, in the longer run, get to that sort of top tier. So just my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, it's almost like having new roles at Forrester is like going to a school, right? So, you have a specific school, you're like, oh, I got into dive school. Sweet. I'm going to go learn to do that for a while. It's similar to that is how I would kind of describe it.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of flexibility then, as far as moving both horizontally and vertically, and great.
Yeah, and that can be a little intimidating, quite frankly, because you have to learn to navigate both to a degree. And I will say I was hyper focused on, the hierarchy style. And what I've really realized here at Forrester is the value for me is in the breadth, not necessarily, where I'm headed next up here. It's really more about what can I experience, what can I accomplish sideways. But there's a ton out there.
That's awesome. I was wondering too, what does the work from home environment look like for the Cambridge office? Are you guys in the office right now, or is it half and half, or do you have any plans on coming back?
I'm going to let Amy talk to it.
Oh. Okay, so we try to do internal surveys as well and really get a good sense of what our current employees are feeling. Right now, the forecast is that we're hoping to return to a hybrid environment at some point. It's hopeful that it will be next year. But we did, in the last survey, find that there were some people going to places like WeWorks or saying, I'd like to get out of my own space and just have the ability to go into a building. So based off of the number of responses we got, we decided to open the office for 2 days during the week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So if you do need to get out of the office and you're that kind of person that says, I'd like to just have a little change in pace, absolutely, but there's no pressure to do so.
What about our new hybrid flex program that was in the works prior to COVID? Did you want to talk about that at all?
I don't know as much about that. So
it's, yeah, that's okay. So before, and I always say this because people sort of get, when candidates ask like, oh, so this is your hybrid work, which is 2 days a week in the office. If you're tied to an office, we do have a lot of remote workers like Scott. So you're tied to an office 2 days a week in the office at your discretion. You can pick those days. They can differ week to week, but you can be in the office more, right? The work, it's like, you don't want to call it a policy or program. It's not a benefit. It's just our work from home thing. But it was in the works. So candidates be like, wait, if you guys just did that during COVID, you're going to go back. But this whole thing was in the works before we were reevaluating what we were offering employees. But we're a research company, so we wanted all of the research. The project team was pulling all that together, and then boom, we had an entire year of our own company production to support it. And so we went from 1 day a week from home to 3 days a week, which is really cool.
All right. All right, so we're at about 7 minutes till the top of the hour. Anything else, either, in particular, Evan, Emmanuel, that you guys would like to pose out there? Questions?
Yeah, I do have one more question. This is really directed towards anybody, but I remember I was talking with you, Jessica, about the TEI program, how it's like a balancing act with like all these different projects that you choose, that you're assigned to. I guess let's say there's a project that you're working on that's like strikes your interest, right? Is there any way that you can start to revolve around your work around that certain area? Or is it you kind of tie down to, being spread out?
I think it's a conversation you have with your manager, right? I'm really energized because one of the, when Scott was talking about finding your home, one of the things that I ask in my phone interviews is what's most important to you in your next role? What do you value most? Aside from benefits, location, all of that, what are you looking for? And then you understand what kind of culture people thrive in and they're energized by. And if you find something that you're getting energized by, right? Just like in recruiting, I might have a team member that's really excited by sales. If that's energizing, I'm going to do everything I can to get that person as much exposure as they can. And I imagine the managers would as well. But again, we're not such a large organization that you're going to be pigeonholed into one small area. So you both graduate 2022?
So I graduate May of 2023. I'm a first year MBA candidate.
That's right. And Emmanuel, you're this spring?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I dropped my LinkedIn in there, so feel free to connect. I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation. And then again, we should start connecting as you're reaching graduation and see if there's anything here for you.
And then maybe last question for me. I know we talked about what's it like in the Cambridge office, but I believe you guys have offices internationally. Is that a large presence within Forrester, or is it really primarily Cambridge based with, a few offshoots in different locations?
Cambridge is our largest hub, right? It's our headquarters. So probably about 500 to 600 people are tied to that office. A lot of people have moved during this pandemic. But our offices, you know, we have a good population. I don't know the exact ratio or how many people we have over there. I think over 500. Amy, you might know, but like our London office is over 100 people. So that's probably our largest international office, but we have London, Paris, India, Beijing, Singapore, Australia. We also hire other places where we don't have offices though. Italy, Germany, and a couple others. But yeah, so we hire everywhere, but there is a large international presence.
Great. All right. So it's feeling like we're probably about at the end, unless there are any last parting comments or questions.
I just wanted to clarify what is the right thing to do to kind of keep this going. So should I reach out to you, Jessica, on LinkedIn? Should I send a follow-up email to a specific person?
So connect with all of us on LinkedIn. I just dropped my email address. And we'll say, let's stay connected, right? We can set up a sort of call in the coming weeks to chat about Forrester, and then go from there, and we can talk about timing. If not me, you could chat with Lewis from my team as well. Lewis is not too far from graduating himself. So he's, you know, recent grad and also recent to Forrester, so you can chat with either one of us. And I love doing that. I love keeping the lines of communication open.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would really appreciate and get a lot of value at talking with someone in consulting on the Forrester team.
Yeah, maybe we can connect you with somebody from the team, from the TEI, because it sounds like you were energized by Evan, you were energized by the TEI stuff when we talked about that. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's definitely connect. I'd love that.
Great.
Okay, I'm gonna send you an email, Jessica, right after this.
Perfect. I'll share you a link to my calendar.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Hopefully everybody got something out of it. I know I certainly did. And you know, what I'd say is, you know, Evan, Emmanuel, if there's anything I can help with, feel free to reach out that way as well. And I know that I'll be in touch with all the our partners from Forrester again shortly. And again, really appreciate you making some time in your day to do this. I think it's a great value.
Us too. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Enjoy your day.
You too, guys. Talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Thanks, everyone.
No problem.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.